Time for a big weekend in the world of horse racing. We're going to head on over to the fairgrounds and talk about the Lecomte and a big Saturday undercard, lots of stakes races. I'm Gino Bacola alongside my good friend Barry Spears, the sniper. Barry, I got to say, this is the weekend every year, this particular Saturday and this particular day at fairgrounds, where to me, the Derby road begins. It's like the
Oh
Lecomte
yeah.
day. Because this is like that first one where Gulfstream had a couple, and they had one around New Year's, and then they'll have Pegasus next week. But this is the first one that's kind of built around the 3-year-old race or races. We've got the Silver Bullet Day for the fillies. We've got the Lecomte for the boys, and now you get into those big points races where things really start to take shape. This is the one for me where it feels like that unofficial triggering of, okay, now we're on the road each and every year. So I'm excited. We'll keep our fingers crossed because as you and I are talking on Thursday, weather, we're still not 100% sure. Could be a little bit rainy, but got a good card and a really nice field for the Lecomte lined up.
Yeah, I mean, this, like you said, this is when all the juices get flowing, and you see the 3-year-olds out there, and you see the ones that don't make the jump from 2 years to 3 years old, and it's just the best time of the year for me.
I'm also a little extra excited because I found out that I'll be heading to Gulfstream Park next week for the Pegasus, which means a couple of things. First and foremost, I'll get to hang out with my good friend Barry Spears for the first time. So that'll be
Oh
awesome.
man.
First trip to Florida, first time heading to Gulfstream Park, and then getting to hang out on a big day of racing, be doing some work for First Racing. I think helping out as a wagering ambassador, going to be doing some stuff for DRF on a couple different shows throughout the weekend. So, man, I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be hanging out and talking some races and playing the races next week.
It's been a long time coming, man. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, so it's so great that you come over to the East Coast and get a little bit of that Miami action. And the weather should be great from what I'm seeing.
So hopefully we'll be in your neck of the woods, and we'll be around Gulfstream Park next week. So we'll preview some of those races. And what's nice, those races come out early, so we can do it early in the week too. I think they'll come out on Sunday even. So we can probably get something done on like Wednesday, get those races out real early for everybody before the big races on Saturday. So that's all coming up next week. This week, we've got some business to handle right here. We're going to dive into the golf. We're going to dive into fairgrounds, and we're looking at the past performances. DRF, like always, shop.drf.com for everything you need. And these aren't regarding the fairgrounds races, but a couple more chances this weekend for those big qualifiers at Gulfstream. If you're playing at ExpressBet, if you want to get into that Pegasus World Cup betting championship, which is that huge tournament, and then Santa Anita has a big one on Saturday. It's a $500 entry, so it's super affordable, and you can actually qualify into that thing for just $40 on Friday if you want to try there. So always like to give a plug to those contests. Here's a look at some of them coming up. There's the Gulfstream ones. Here's the Santa Anita feeders. Barry and I will be focusing on the late pick 5 sequence from Fairgrounds, races 8 through 12 on Saturday that ends with the Lecomte. So big shout out to Marcus Hirsch, reporter for DRF. He did a really nice job of letting us know the plans for some of these horses if the weather changes. So in this particular race, Cupid's Crush will run on dirt or turf. Nice to know. Champagne Rose will run on dirt. And possibility they could run in an allowance race somewhere else. So that was the 8. And then Nanda Dia will be a scratch if this race is taken off of the turf. So the 13 will come out. So just a little bit of a heads up for some of the folks doing some handicapping. We'll try to look at the races, though, and talk about them like they're on the grass, because mainly you can do what Marcus did, and we can know, okay, if they are taken off, this horse might be good or not. It's just too hard to handicap races and project who might scratch, who might not in races like that. So we'll look at it like they're on the turf, Barry. This one's 1 mile and a 16th on the turf course. Cupid's Crush, I think one of the major players in here. Stir Crazy, another one who was a winner of a local fairgrounds prep race and beat Join the Dance. We've seen Join the Dance in these races over the last couple of years quite a bit. And to the outside, the 3, Nanda Dia, This kind of looks like one of these Correas horses that they do a great job with, right? They bring them over. These horses have some experience from, places like Argentina, and they come here and just seem like they get a real good feel for where those horses could stack up, or the good ones that might perform well over here. And we saw that from Nanda Diaz. So a big field lining up, 14 a few days out. Probably have a few scratches in here, as we pointed out. Who are some of the ones that you want to start with?
Yeah, I mean, this race shapes up like somebody just has to run a little bit, I think, with Cupid's Crush, to kind of get in that horse's way to open things up.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, I mean, that horse could just run off and not be touched here, especially with the rail draw like that.
Stretching back out from a sprint race, where coming out of quicker races. And we know that this horse has been able to show positional speed and be right there in sprints before. So we've seen it. And like you said, if worse comes to worse, can sit a little bit. But I think with that inside draw, she's definitely going to go.
Yeah. That being said, if there's some horses in here with some zip that could get in her way, which would open it up for horses like the 9 Ghostly Gal, who I like quite a bit in here. Especially after not running all that great in the My Charmer, and it just kind of accentuated the fact that this horse isn't really a synthetic specialist. Turf seems to be better for this horse, and getting back to the turf seems like the move. A really good move in a really good spot.
Has some versatility too. Just looking in the last 3 grass races, sits pretty close. And remember that day, that December 14th day, those were some tough fields at Turfway. Those are the big races that we took a look at, those synthetic races. And Dana's Beauty won that race on the front end. There really wasn't much passing there. So don't even be that hard on her for that race. It's probably a little bit better than it might look just based on figures. I agree with you. She's definitely in the mix for me too.
Actually, I should note that on the 14th, there was a slight bias to
the front end, right?
That night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not a lot of passing.
Exactly. And this horse kind of got caught in the shuffle and kind of ran the same even all the way through that race, which is probably going to do that horse a lot of good coming back onto the turf.
Mention the one who's a major player. The horse who I'm interested in is the 7 Austere.
Yes.
You and I have played her before a few times, and if you're just looking at her off of her speed figures, they might be a little bit light, but keep in mind, she has a couple gaps in the running lines, and she's missed a little bit of time in spots where she's probably a little more mature and maybe a little bit better than the speed figures would suggest. Visually, her race on November the 23rd was really, really good. And she was good at 2. She was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. She was only beaten 2 lengths there. She was off for a few months. And then in the start of 2024, her first couple races, she was a little unlucky. The Florida Oaks race wasn't bad. That field was pretty good. She was only beaten a length and 3/4 that day in a big field. She came back and she had legitimate trouble in the race at Keeneland in April. And then she was off till November. And when she showed back up in November, even off the long layoff, she ran a career best race based on buyers. I think she can take a nice step forward. She's had plenty of time since that race to recover. It's not like she's coming back quickly or any worry about a bounce for her. She actually had a much better start than it might look like on paper, but they were going sort of quick. There were a lot of horses looking for that forward position. So she took back, ends up getting kind of pushed back a little bit, and she's 7th, about 5 lengths off. But she was really traveling well, even at the top of the lane, 5 lengths off still, but a big rally. And she came from a little farther back than normal. So, yeah, we've always kind of liked her a little bit, Barry, and she's been playable prices throughout most of her career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this horse has some talent, and I like the fact that it's second time Lasix too.
Yep.
Going in this spot, I mean, she definitely fits here. I think she's a pretty good horse.
Yeah, I agree. So she's interesting. We talked about the 1. We talked about the 13. We got into the 9, Ghostly Gal, a little bit. The 8 is a wild card who I got to see a race from. But
I was going to say, if you like the 13, if anybody likes the 13, you kind of have to like the 12 a little bit.
And Yeah, you give the some of these wild cards a little bit of a look here. Um, there's a few of them. Yeah, the 12, the 13, also, yeah, who we're getting into the 8. And this is what happens after a really good year from McPeak and Hernandez. What's going to happen? You're just going to start getting more horses,
Yep.
right? You win big races all over the place. You're going to start getting horses like this. People will send you horses from all over, and you probably get more coming off an awesome year where you win the Kentucky Derby and the Kentucky Oaks. So, Champagne Rose, a big price. Barry and I talk about the 7, Austere. Barry got into the 9, Ghostly Gal. Both of us feel like the race kind of goes through the 1 and who can push the 1. If not, probably one that you definitely want to include with that likely with the possibility that this one could sneak away. But in the event that maybe the 8 horse join the dance, or the 6 horse, Way to Be Marie, want to get a little bit more aggressive, one of these horses from the outside. The 9 has shown some positional speed before. There's enough of these horses who have that in their arsenal where they can show a little bit that we could see the 1 getting pressed a bit. So there's a look at the 8th race, kicking off the late pick 5 sequence at Fairgrounds on Saturday. We move to the 3-year-old fillies, newly turned 3-year-old fillies in here. I thought a couple really nice ones, Barry, with this is the Silver Bullet Day. So you have the 1, Chaston, whose dam was a horse named Lockdown, who was solid. We could see she won the Busanda race that's coming up actually this weekend on Saturday at Aqueduct back in 2017. She was 3rd in the Kentucky Oaks. But really, it's all about Idiomatic, because this is the sibling, the half to Idiomatic. So we saw a pretty impressive debut where she came from way out of it, and she did it in hand. Super nice. The 2 and the 5 are both, or the 2 and the 6, excuse me, are both McPeak runners. One of them is going to be in, and it looks like one's going to scratch. So they're going to keep one of them, either Gallows Delight or Golden Gamble, for the same connections. One will stay, one will be scratched. California Sunset, the 5, going to be out, entered in a different spot, will run in that spot. Bless the Broken, who's cross-entered, is going to run here. Won't be running this weekend. I think it's at Oaklawn.
Oaklawn.
Yeah, where she was cross-entered. Yep. And then Aqueduct.
Aqueduct, yes.
Yep.
The 8, yeah.
In the
Busanda.
Busanda.
I would think that one, would have
gone to
that other spot, but you see that last workout, January 9th at Fairgrounds.
Yeah, so
I'd be hard pressed to think that they flew that horse all the way to Aqueduct for that race, but you never know.
Yep. So Bless the Broken runs, and Drexel Hill is possible. Drexel Hill, who we also see entered for a different race there at Fairgrounds. So some moving pieces, some moving parts in here, but I did think that from a talking point, the real contenders are down to the inside. The one who I was getting into, the 2, Golden Gamble, really impressive winning second start. Came back and was solid in the Untappable, just lost to a horse who was lone speed that day. And then Simply Joking was really impressive, winning first time out of the box. So who do you kind of want to start with in here, Barry?
Honestly, I kind of thought Golden Gamble might be a standout in this spot, but if it's a question mark that this horse goes, I don't really know.
I for the record, I agree with you on that. I like Golden Gamble the most. So I think it was more of, I'm not going to run both of my horses versus which one's better. So I think he's probably just trying to pick out which one's better at Big Peak, which was like timing wise. They both ran only a few days apart. So, right, it's not too much different. So it might just be, okay, who's
same
doing
connections
better,
too.
Right? Let's just separate them so we don't run against each other. Yeah. And you know what? You enter them because you enter them a week out early, and then maybe something goes wrong. So at least you got them both entered. You can scratch one of them and then run somewhere in another couple weeks, because I think both the McPeaks would be live, but the 2, like the 6 would be the more, okay, this one's a little bit interesting. The 2 is better than her speed figure so far.
Yeah, and has the right running style for this race, I think. But it's hard to see what kind of scenario you're going to get, because all these horses, A, haven't run all that much, and B, seem to have similar running styles. So it's kind of a crapshoot in a way, because clearly a majority of these horses are not going to run the same kind of trip they did their first time out or when they
Yeah.
won.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do a little projecting here, but I think
Because like the
just
1 and the 3, for example, they got to be a little bit faster
right.
this time than they were that first time. They were sprinting, they're stretching out.
Yeah,
That
and
was
I don't
just
think
their
the
first
one,
starts.
yeah, the plan for the one wasn't to go all the way back like that either.
No,
So this pace scenario gets a little murky, but I think Golden Gamble has proven himself consistently enough
I think
in
so too.
passing horses that sitting off, even if it's close up, isn't the
It's,
worst thing in the world, and probably has a little bit of advantage in that sense.
I agree. I think they can use just more the trip that she sat when she broke her maiden,
Mm.
right? Sitting like third, fourth, 2 lengths off, that like not far out of it, and letting maybe 1 or 2 horses go. I think you can. I feel like the foundation there with Golden Gamble
Is key.
is the key here in this
Mhm.
race, where you have like major contenders like the 1 and the 3 who are coming out of the sprints, and they just have the lone sprint race. I feel like if they're all kind of like, just like what you're saying, if they're all sort of jockeying for position early and looking where to go, and the 2 has to take back a little bit or sit behind them or move a little, I just trust this horse a little bit more overall with the body of work. Golden Gamble, a couple of really nice fillies though down to the inside. I think it's those 3, honestly, like especially if the 6 doesn't go. The 7 would be the one, just based on there not being that much early speed in here. Maybe this horse could just be forward and be close, but I just think she's going to have to improve. Not that much on speed figures. I just don't know if she's quite as good as the others, though.
Yeah, that's the question. And
It was
oh
like a
man,
soft field of 5. She got an easy win that day in a race that was taken off the turf. She did lose to the horse that you like, Mayday Ready, back in that race in August at Saratoga, but just watching her races, she just didn't feel like she's quite on the level of the others in here.
yeah, that I feel the same way.
Yeah.
The interesting horse to me though is Drexel Hill. Um,
Yeah.
didn't get a great trip at the fairgrounds first time on the dirt, and I think people are going to shy away. But I think this horse might be a little bit better than that last race, and probably will improve and progress out of that race, which puts this one in the mix here, because just the experience this horse has probably will go a long way.
And this barn is the trainer of the 3, Simply Joking. They've had a really nice
Good
start
run.
to the
Good run.
meet early, just in one of those barns that doesn't have a bunch of horses, but enough really solid numbers, a good 2024, and has some live horses here trying to get some Kentucky Oaks points and get their way on to the Oaks. So Simply Joking, Drexel Hill, both for Beckman. It does look like the inside horses, even up to the 4 here, going to be live. Remember, the 5 is out, 6 or the 2, one of those 2 will be out. And it looks like the 8 will stay in here. That's the Silver Bullet Day for 3-year-old fillies. That is race number 9 on Saturday at the fairgrounds. Let's move to race number 10. In this one, Gigante will run regardless, and Northern Invader will run if it's on turf only. Northern Invader draws the inside. Getting to the number 7, Gigante, he won a local prep with a lot of these same types of horses. He's run really well at fairgrounds. A couple of his victories are here. He's a 7-time winner. He's pretty consistent overall. There's some races you can look at. Maybe he's coming off a little bit of a layoff. Maybe he's facing a little bit tougher, but fits pretty well in this spot with this group. Others here who I thought make some sense. You have a horse like the 9, who's pretty sharp, has won like 3 of the last 5. And when he didn't win, lost at Kentucky to a horse named Goliad, who came right back and won a nice stakes race out of that, and is a very tough horse to run down when he's on the front end. You also have Wadsworth, who's just consistent, making a 3rd start off a long layoff. He hasn't done a whole lot wrong in his career. And I even thought that Horse to the outside, Tonka Warrior is kind of interesting, coming off of a runner-up effort, has some pretty good turf form. So big field, few horses that are kind of on the top tier there. Barry, what's your opinion on this one?
You know, this is another one that I kind of went through this whole field and I was like, man, there's only a couple of horses that I could see winning this race. And you touched on two of them, the 9, What Say Thee, and the 11, Wadsworth. And then after that, you know, obviously Gigante has a huge shot, and Northern Invader. That's it.
I agree.
That's it.
I had a tough, like, starting from the inside, I had a tough time getting to a horse like Grace Fable, Happy American, 50-1, Duke of Carthania, 30-1. These are horses I just haven't raced since July. Not the recent form for Happy American. You can see the last 2 years, just 1 for 20. The 5, I couldn't really get there. I thought Gigante was just a lot better and was one I would just prefer. Stitched wasn't one of the long shots I got to. Higgins Boat, I couldn't quite get there as much. So yeah, we almost had the exact same horses.
Well, the other two fringe players would be Tonka Warrior and Money Supply.
Yeah.
Money Supply may have just not been right, quote unquote, when, you know, right after he started on the turf. And it seems like something was amiss. And then they laid the horse off. He came back. He's run a little bit better, but I could see a little bit of a form reversal here, especially getting Frankie. You know, he knows where to put horses like this in order to get the most out of him. And he could fall into a really good trip and be right there at the finish. Same thing with Tonka Warrior.
Yep.
This horse does have some races to go to, but just the class is the question.
Yeah, we don't know how good he really is. His races came at Canterbury, a lot of them. So he was solid, and his turf form is good. And on speed figures, he's really not far behind this group. So he's worth a look. Just make sure you get a price, because he's going to have to step up, and he's got a wide post in here. So things will have to play out perfectly for him. But you could do worse for a horse that could be around 50
he's capable.
You know,
if he gets the right trip and things fall his way. But with things like, or with horses like Tonka Warrior, you have to think of the percentages. Like, you know, what's the chances of him getting the trip he needs and being right there? It's probably a little lower, you know, to the tune of like 10-15%.
Yep.
You know?
So just make sure that you get the value on these types of horses if you're going to use them. Tricky race here with kind of a top tier, and then a lot of big prices who don't look like they have as much of a shot on paper, but can they maybe get a trip and
you know,
and shock
money
the field
in here is City Man. City Man was the favorite in the Pegasus Turf.
Yes,
a couple years ago, which was strange.
Yes,
because I was there that day, and I was like, "How is this horse favored? He's in the widest post, and just really didn't have a shot, and he ran like it. I mean, he was really like last the entire
did not
way.
even fire a shot at all. And it was like he just came off of like a local prep, and it was more that there just wasn't anyone in that field. Because remember, a Tone got bet down too, because you and I like the Tone, and that horse was like 12-1 on the morning line and was about 6 or 7-1, and then got hammered in the last 2 clicks and went down to like, just over 7-2. I think was in the right around 4-1 or so. It's funny how we remember these things from years back, you know, but you're right. If you eliminate that race and you eliminate the last effort, which, you know, now coming off of a couple months, the form is pretty good. And it's not all against New York breds, but even the form against the New York breds is against good horses like Jerry the Nipper, who we've seen come out of that and face open company and be successful there, and was in the Fort Marcy against Ottoman Fleet, not far behind those. So
I mean, he's 8 years old at this point, so you got to wonder if he's just
losing a step
and needs a little bit of class relief. But again, if this horse steps up and runs a big race, would you really be surprised? And
if you're spreading in this race, this horse I like then more than half the others that we talked about. If this is that kind of a race for you, then a lot of the horses to the inside who we were discussing. What's nice about City Man is, you know, he's at least capable of winning this race. It just comes down to, does he still have it? Is he ready right now? a little bit of an outside draw. Does he get the post? For some of these horses, you don't even know if they're quite this good or if they could win a race like this. With him, we know he can.
Right.
So that's half the battle sometimes when you're looking for prices like this. That is race number 10 on Saturday at the fairgrounds. That's the middle part of the pick 5. As we move to the late double portion of the pick 5, we'll get to the grade 3 Louisiana. This one is a mile and a 16th. Didn't really get any changes in this one from Marcus Hirsch, but some of the top contenders. You have Hit Show, who we remember he ran a pretty good fifth in the Derby. It came back in the Belmont and then had a nice 2024. Was third last time out in the Clark. He's a top contender in here, no doubt about it. You've got Skinner, who was always a really highly regarded horse, but he had a lot of hiccups and a lot of physical issues along the way. He ended up having to miss time after the Santa Anita Derby. And then throughout 2023, then he missed all of like a year from November of 2023 to November of 2024. He showed back up this year and was good in the Native Diver. Now he comes into the DeVoe barn. And the thing about him, you kind of know what you're going to get. He just needs a little pace to run at. You know, he's a closer and he might just be a better horse now because he's able to get over some of those physical issues. He's 5. He's kind of more developed. He's bigger. He just feels like more of a real, like a man now, right? He's not like a boy as much. He's like more of a man now. So he's probably able to do, he's probably a little more versatile now than he was before. When you get a little older, a little more mature. You have Cook Creek, who's a player. He just missed the break last time out and it kind of hurt him a little bit. He wants to be pretty forward in races like this. We remember Track Phantom from last year. He was the Lecomte winner on this very day a year ago, and then was the runner-up in the Risen Star, ran 4th in the Louisiana Derby. Comorabino Amodier is a quick horse who stretches back out from 6 furlongs. How about the 9 or the 10? Like a lightly raced horse who's in very good form right now. Might get a tough trip from out there, but Maycox Bay has a pretty high ceiling. So a fun race here. I think Hit Show is probably one of the horses to beat who we started with from the inside.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to get around Hit Show and Skinner in this spot. They have
make
the
a
right
lot of
running
sense.
styles.
Yep.
Yeah, they have the right running style. There's enough speed. Track Phantom, who
The 3
likes this
Pipeline.
track, I just don't think he wants to go that far. The 9 has some zip. The 10 is probably going to have to try to get
The
position
6,
early.
I think, is going to go for sure because they missed a break a little last time.
Pipeline, I mean,
Yep.
this sort of falls into their lap.
Absolutely
And,
agree.
you know, it almost feels like it's just a 2-horse race.
I thought both of them make a ton of sense. And the only horse I was wanting to make a little bit of a case for was the 10, but it's just going to be so hard for this horse from outside. Can he sit? We haven't seen him do that, and now he's going to have to be probably parked or go a lot faster than we've seen him recently going this far. So like, I think he's a nice horse. I really do. It's just not an easy spot where there's maybe 4 other fast horses. Like the 9 is quick, and he's stretching out from sprint races with an outside draw. He'll be at least pushing it. The 8 Track Phantom, very fast, and he's one-dimensional. He can't really sit. We know that about him. He just has to go.
Well, there's always that possibility that those horses inside of Maycox Bay are faster.
Yeah.
And that actually would be
beneficial if he can sit a little bit.
Right. And he can slide into that kind of stalking kind of position. Like
where he's not
almost
5
right
deep
with Hit Show.
But he's kind of 3 deep, right?
Just
Instead
right
of being
alongside Hit Show. That's
exactly
really where they want to be.
They'd love to be right there. So of the others that you were looking around, he might be an interesting kind of wild card. But yeah, this race I thought was those horses are just solid. Like Hit Show is solid. This is the type of spot where he belongs because every year you'll find horses like this. Look, Brad Cox isn't winning at 30% of his races for no reason. He knows where these horses belong. This is the type of horse who I think some other people would probably be putting in grade 1s, and he would probably run like a little more slotty in those races, right? He might be able to pop up here and there and win one or run well, but in just a cut below the top tier, he's really solid. Like this is where he fits very, very well. And this we've seen like some of the horses in here, Cook Creek, Heroic Move, Comorbino Amode, he's gotten the better of them.
I mean,
or your
if there
Johnny.
really is a knock on Hit Show in this spot, it's the distance.
Yeah,
He probably wants to go
a little
longer.
farther. Yeah, little farther because he's a little more of a grinder. So
Mhm.
it might be a little short for him, but yeah, he sits a really nice trip in here. Skinner should get the really good setup. For me, after those two, the 6 and the 10 would be the other ones of the speed horses. I probably prefer them the most of the horses who I think could be forward and hang around for a slice. But it doesn't really set up well for them. I do wonder because sometimes when I see Joel a lot of the time, to me, it signals we're taking back.
Right,
I
we're
don't
going
all
back.
that's not always the case, right?
No,
Joel
it definitely
is
isn't.
super capable on the lead. I mean, he was
That's
very
how he
good
made
out
that's
west.
how he
Yeah,
made his name.
out west on the front end. Like out here, you had to be. So, but it does sort of, for a lot of times we talk about, okay, Rosario's on that probably means they're taking back. Yeah, I just Cook Creek's best races are when he's on the front end. That's where he has like his advantage, and I just don't know if he'll get that in here. Hit Show and Skinner, a couple of the horses to beat. What a year it was last year for Cherie DeVoe, and had a fantastic start to the meet here at the fairgrounds in early 2025. Let's finish things up with the Lecomte. Race number 12 is the Grade 3 Lecomte. What we know of now, Admiral Dennis is out. Boo. Yeah, we
Boo,
boo
thumbs
the three.
down.
The three, Admiral Dennis. And Seattle Road to be determined to the outside, the number 14. So still could be a field of 12 in here. Built, and what is not a big surprise, there's a lot of speed in here. Built the 13 was really impressive winning the gun runner, but it earned a 92 buyer speed figure, but he was in a small field, got a easy lead, and now he's going to be way to the outside. The 11 Disco Time, 2 for 2, both of his races going a little shorter, both of his races pretty much right on the front end. He was not far off. You've got the 9 Dapper Moon. I've played a few times. He hasn't run that bad when he's faced graded stakes company. He was 4th in all of those races. He just is a little bit overmatched by the best horses. He's stretching back out, which means he'll probably be forward because he was close up in those races when he was sprinting. Tough Catch has only sprinted, and now he stretches out. He's got to be close up early on. Golden Afternoon, he'll try the dirt for the first time. His race is on the turf. He's been sitting really, really close. Optical, he's been on the dirt right on the front end, really close to it, and the blinkers go on. Magnitude, he's been really close to the front end and not really shown us that he wants to sit off and pass horses. The 1 Innovator, he's probably the fastest of all of them, stretching out from sprint. He just really wants to go. He actually almost beat Barnes a couple starts back, the very highly regarded Baffert runner. Look at some of the horses who he's run into. Owen Almighty, who's a nice one, who got DQ'd from a win at Tampa, but a nice 3-year-old. Chancellor McPatrick, grade 1 winner. Barnes, who I think is the favorite right now in the future wagers for the Kentucky Derby coming up. Kale's Angel is a really nice sprinter who's coming back again this week. So he's faced really nice company. 1 and 2 are both pretty quick, Barry. They could be flying in here.
Yeah, that's what it projects to be. However, I think a horse like Tough Catch is probably going to be sitting a great trip. I don't think that horse really wants to go to the front, especially on the stretch out. I think taking back is probably the way to go. And having Luis Saez kind of give the Luis Saez stalk ride is optimal for Tough Catch as long as he can handle the distance. One horse I'll give a shout to at a big price is Seattle Road, the 14.
Yeah.
I think this horse is starting to figure it out. They paid a pretty penny for her. And it seems like this horse is kind of turning the corner.
And I
The
actually
post
wouldn't
is
even.
horrible.
Yeah, it is. But I was going to say, I wouldn't mind it that much for him if they're just going to take him back.
Right, take back. Yeah.
Like,
That's precisely why I'm mentioning this horse, because in a race like this where there is a ton of speed and very fast, they're going to be quick up front. This horse could get a good trip
and that,
just by kind of going all the way to the back and waiting and just making one run, and it might be the winning one at a
That
good
was
price.
what was really nice about Admiral Dennis. Thought could sit a nice trip, maybe
Exactly.
behind the speeds, save some ground, and get a good run in here. Because of the scratch of him, I'm kind of, and as we were going through the field, I'm looking for a few of those horses, just like you pointed out with the 14, who's proven coming from off the pace, who really feels like they might be able to win a race like this. I got to 2 horses in here that I definitely want to include these that may not be on everyone's radar, but the 7 Calling Card, probably going to get bet a little because he is one of the closers that stands out as like a true closer in here. His race, I just wanted to show it because it was the Aqueduct one.
Oh, the
2
Aqueduct,
starts back when he breaks his maiden.
Yes.
It's pretty insane. Like both of his 2 races are good, but this race, he's at Aqueduct. It's on this November the 17th. So this is the race we're looking at. He's 5-2 here. He's the 8. So he's not the fastest in the world, but he's not dead last. Right now you can see he's 2 from the back. They're going to go pretty quick here though, and he gets spread out a little bit. So he ends up being about
way
9 to 10 lengths off, right about here or so when he gets back to about his farthest. But even now you can see he's kind of traveling pretty well. Like he's just behind horses.
You can see.
And when he gets asked here, this was like, what happened to the rest? It's like you're looking at the race, like
where'd
what happened to the rest
go?
Of the field as he's just really starting to get into it, and they just move him to the outside, and you're just kind of waiting for the horse to stop. When you make a move like this, when you make a big early move like this, and you go right by the field, you're waiting. Okay, like he's gonna hit the wall, he's gonna stop right here and get tired, but just in hand right now, went entirely by this group. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to keep going and win this race by 15 plus lengths. It was just like eye-opening for Calling Card here, who was a 5-2 favorite, right? It wasn't like he's a 1-9 shot against this group, but he absolutely opens up on this field. This was his first start on the dirt. His start going long on the turf actually wasn't bad either. He finished second that day. He's just a closer. He's just a deep closer. He's going to get far behind. He sat a little closer last time out. He regressed a little bit. It really wasn't even that bad of a race, though, at Oaklawn Park, where he finished behind Sandman. Sandman is a horse you see in some of the running lines for other horses. He has always been a really highly regarded Mark Casse runner. Sandman earned an 89 buyer when he won that race. If Sandman was entered in this race, he would be one of the top betting choices. Just off of his overall form, he'd probably be 5-1-ish in that range or below. So I think Calling Card fits well if this race sets up the way it might look on paper, where they're flying early. He takes back. He doesn't have to move as early as he did in that last race because there's a little more pace in here to run at. Look, they went 2 seconds to the half mile slower last time out, so it just doesn't set up quite that well for him. It forced him to try to move early where he wants to sit back and then boom, press the button and make that one big late run. So Calling Card,
I mean, you kind of have to figure this horse is probably going to figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
And he's going to get good at some point.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you can see how the horse is kind of putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to Oaklawn and faced a lot better competition than he did
Open company.
In that state-bred rest and did pretty good. So
and it was sort of a measuring stick.
Right.
Okay, hey, look, we think
how good are we?
Right. We can compete with horses like this because we see Sandman there. He kind of moved up into it. Now, if the race were to set up a little bit better based on his speed figures, he's not overmatched by this group at all. Calling Card. And then, the 10, Mo Better Than Good. His debut, and these are both New York breds too. Both of the 2 I'm mentioning. His debut was really, really good. He was just saving ground, waiting. He was 5th at the top of the lane, still about 3 lengths off. What I noted in watching the replay, it was like for a horse that was making his career debut as a 2-year-old going 7 furlongs, they handled him like an absolute pro.
Mm.
Like when I asked him to save ground, he was waiting there on the inside. When he asked him to move, he went, he responded. He just seemed like a really smart, kind of heady horse who might be like precocious, maybe a little ahead of some of these horses who might be green and figuring it out. This horse might have some multiple gears. So I'm going to throw him in because he's one of a few that I've seen pass horses at 7 furlongs in a wide open race where, I mean, so many different things can happen in this race with the possibilities of 2 horses showing speed, 3 horses showing speed, 5 horses showing speed. We see things like this where some of these horses like Disco Time, who has been close. Well, maybe he's just been close because he's so good. Maybe he can sit back 4 or 5 lengths and win. I don't know. He's probably going to be shorter than I'd want to play in that spot, but it absolutely could happen. It's a fascinating race.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think it's going to be a rider's race. Built
Yep.
is not going to get the same kind of trip,
No
and
way.
that's where everything kind of trickles down.
Yep. If he
This
wins, he's going to have earned it at a shorter price than I would want to bet off of that trip.
exactly
You know?
right. That's why he's not even on my radar
No.
because he's going to be short, and he's not going to get the same trip. He got the trip of a lifetime last time and capitalized. And the horse is fast, no doubt. But there's just other people in here, and this pace is not going to be as soft as he had it the last time.
No. So there is a look at the Lecomte Kentucky Derby points on the line on Saturday at the Fairgrounds. That is race number 12 on a really strong card. We'll keep our fingers crossed that the weather cooperates best as possible over there. Big racing all over the place this weekend. Remember, Santa Anita is running back. They just ran Thursday. They're running Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday also for holiday racing. And they have some of the stakes races back from last week. Gulfstream also has a couple of the Sunshine Stakes races and a fun late pick 5 sequence. So lots going on, Barry. What are or were you guys looking at this week for the notorious OTB?
We did $100 budget for the comp day.
Nice. Awesome.
So a lot of my picks were actually earlier in the card. So you might want to check that out.
Cool. That'll help you build a bankroll a little bit, and then we can get to the later part on the pick 5 sequence here. Barry and I will be focused on the Pegasus Day next week. They draw those races really early, so if you want to take a look, I think Sunday they'll be out. There'll be 3 Pegasus races this year. You've got the World Cup Dirt, you've got the World Cup Turf, you've got the Filly and Mare Turf, and then 6 or 7 more undercard graded stakes races. It's just a massive day, top to bottom. Basically, like every division of horses has a graded stakes or a nice stakes race for them. So there'll be pick 4s, pick 5s, all sorts of turf pick 4s and 5s, coast to coast, crazy wagers all over the place. That'll be next week. This week, a good one at the Fairgrounds with Lecomte Day. Barry, buddy, looking forward to getting the chance to talk some Gulfstream and then to get to see you next week, man. That'll be an absolute blast. Let's make some money and pick some winners this week. So we've got a big bankroll for next weekend.
Exactly. Let's get that money.
Everyone, hope you have a fantastic weekend. And again, right now, if you can, if you have a few extra dollars or anything, any way you can help donate to some of the people who have lost their homes out in the fires in Southern California. I'm trying to share a lot of the stuff on social media, on Instagram and other places, because there are a lot of people that I know that are doing really nice things. Like this weekend, one of my friends' girlfriend put together like a boutique for a lot of girls to go and kind of look at just some of the girls' clothing. I saw there was a thing where a young girl actually created a store and a shop for a lot of girls who could go find like products and dresses and stuff that maybe you're not going to be given from other places. You know, You don't even think about that. If you can put a few bucks into some of these people's GoFundMe, maybe one less ticket you can play at a track, or if you win, you can help them out a little bit. People lost everything from the bottom up. So any way you can help at all, I will say, Barry, man, especially right now in the world, in the US, man, it's a tense time. A lot of people on opposite sides of like the world of like the political spectrum of like how you think and how you want things to go. But I will say, man, when stuff like this happens, it does remind me that, okay, okay, there still are a lot of good people out there who care because there has been an incredible response. I mean, Santa Anita, like places in Pasadena, they've had to like cut people off.
Yeah.
We don't need anything more. We've gotten too much stuff. Like we can't even accept any more stuff because we don't have people to sort it all and we don't have people to give it all away. So when you see stuff like this, it does, you know, remind you a little bit that there's still some great people out there in the world. And if you have an opportunity to give a little bit, these people right now really could use the help.
Yeah, absolutely. We all go through tough times, and this kind of shows that we're all human, and when everybody comes together to help others, it's always fantastic.
Best of luck to all of you this weekend. Make sure if you are watching this on YouTube, head down and subscribe on the YouTube channel because, yeah, like next week, we'll have a ton of stuff for Pegasus. I'll have a lot of different stuff. We'll be over at Gulfstream. I'll probably post a couple things over there too. So if you subscribe there and then comment, if you're watching this, let us know. Who do you like in the Lecomte? Who do you like in some of these undercard races? Are you along with me and Barry, or did we miss a horse that's on your radar and maybe you want to lead us there so we throw them in our pick fives? Best of luck, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. Talk to you again very soon here on That's What G Said podcast and the YouTube channel.